Remote control mouse. Oh, there it is. All right, there's Mendel. Mendel was a monk. He lived in Austria, which is like near Germany. And in the 1800s, he figured out how genetics works. And he wrote it all up. Carter, are you with me? You seem like you're not. He wrote all this up and did experiments on it. You probably heard about his experiments. He experimented with pea plants. And I always thought a good Halloween costume would be a Mendel costume.
Green and yellow.
It's never done. I just got started and then the phone rings.
Sad.
Tom Willis. Merrill Bean's checking out. Okay, thanks. Merrill, you're out of here. All right. So I'll summarize his experiments for you. He would take a pea plant. Here's pictures of pea plants. This talks about one of his experiments. And probably the one that's easiest to show. He'd take a tall pea plant. Here's a pea plant. And he would mate it with a short pea plant. He called this a cross. The X means a cross. And the pea plants have flowers on them. Flowers. Those are flowers. And he could cross pea plants with one another. You know how he would do that?
Pollen.
He would take a paintbrush and he would paint the little stamens with the paintbrush. You know what stamens are? I don't know if you've ever looked closely at a flower, but there's little things that kind of look like this in there. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. And he would take a paintbrush and he'd paint those off. And there's usually a big one in the middle. So there's these little stamens, and then the big one in the middle is called the pistil. And the pollen is on the stamens. That's the male parts. Those pollen contains sperm cells. Did you know that? Think about that next time the pollen's all over your car in the spring. There's sperm cells in every pollen grain. And so he'd paint the paintbrush on the stamens over here, and then he'd paint this pistil over here with the paintbrush. So he'd be moving the pollen grains from one flower to the other, the same way bees do. He'd also paint the stamens here and paint the pistil there. So he'd cross-pollinate the plants. He'd pollinate this one with pollen from that one, and he'd pollinate this one with pollen from that one. Isn't this exciting? Mm-hmm. Mendel out there with his paintbrush. He would also snip off the stamens after he did that so that the plant couldn't self-pollinate. Because pea plants can actually pollinate themselves. Sex with themselves. Some of y'all aren't paying attention. I'm giving some good sex jokes here. So he cut the stamens off so it couldn't pollinate itself. So he controlled what it pollinated. And by the way, he called the tall one that he used in this experiment a true breeding tall plant. You know why he called it a true breeding tall plant? Because he would let it self-pollinate for several generations and plant the seeds, and he got year after year after year just tall plants from this line. And so he figured there were no short genes in there. And year after year for this plant were short, over and over again if it's self-pollinated. So he called this a true breeding short plant and a true breeding tall plant. And he called this whole generation the Pea generation for parent. The Pea generation. Y'all remember any of this from ninth grade bio? How about you, Dylan? Do you remember any of it from ninth grade bio?
I remember a good bit.
Okay. So what did he get in the next generation? He called the next generation the F1. F1 stands for first filial. And filial means sons, I think, in Latin. Or first kids or something like that. What did he get in the first filial generations? What would you predict that he would get if you cross a tall with a short?
3 tall.
That's what you would predict if you didn't know anything about genetics.
A medium-sized
You would predict medium, right?
Yes.
I mean, you made a tall with a short, you should get mediums. That's called blending theory, and that was the idea at the time. Well, he disproved blending theory in his first experiment because there were no mediums. They were all tall. The F1 generation was all tall. And by the way, how do you make the next generation? Well, this flower, after you pollinate it, 2 weeks later, seed pods will grow. The flower falls away and seed pods grow where the flower was. These are pea plants. So you've seen pea pods before, right? They're kind of long and slender like this, and they got peas in them. And the peas are seeds. And you simply plant the peas, and they grow into the new plants. So it's easy enough to go from one generation to the next. Both of them produce the pods. So when you eat peas, you're eating seeds. They're good, aren't they? You like peas? I ate a lot of peas when I was a kid. I've hardly eaten them since. It's weird. It's like kids eat peas, but adults don't. You know, what's with that?
Many adults eat peas and not get them.
Now, Mendel looked at this and he went, that's weird. But he wasn't done, Mendel. He had a lot of time on his hands.
Wow.
So he decided to make one of these with another one of those. Yeah, plants can mate brother and sister. They don't care. They do it with anybody. And when you mate those two, when you cross-pollinate them, what do you think you end up with?
A lot of tall plants.
You know because you've studied it before. You would think maybe they'd all be tall since it's a tall with a tall, but it was interesting what he got. He got 3 tall to 1 short. He got a 3-to-1 ratio in the kids. Let me put some leaves on it just to make it look more like a plant. It's fun to put leaves on it. I've done this a lot. Pretty good at it. Okay. So he got 3 tall plants to 1 short. Now he didn't just plant 4 seeds and get 4 plants. He planted hundreds of seeds and got hundreds of plants. He got about 1,000 plants, I think, and he got about 750 tall to about 250 short. That's a 3-to-1 ratio. And this is called the F2 generation. You getting this at home? Hey, say hi to David. He's going to watch this.
Hi, David.
Hi, David. We miss you. Lottie might watch this too. Hi, Lottie.
Or Josie.
Josie.
Josie. Hey, Josie. What if somebody in future years watches this?
Hi, someone from future years.
Someone in future years.
Or the FBI.
All right. So, from this, Mendel figured out how genetics works. Could you figure out how genetics works from this?
Yeah.
See, Mendel had seen a 3-to-1 ratio before because he was a math teacher as well as a botanist and grower of peas. He knew about probability. If I take 2 coins, let me get 2 coins. It's fun to do this if you actually have 2 coins. You take 2 coins and you flip them. What's the odds of getting 2 heads?
Like 50-50.
That's what you got to figure out. Ooh, I got 2 tails. What's the odds of getting 2 tails? Let me show you the possibilities. Coin 1, coin 2. Now, you could have gotten heads on both. You could have gotten a heads on coin 1 and a tails on coin 2. You could have gotten a tails on coin 1 and a heads on coin 2. Or you could have gotten a tails on coin 1 and a tails on coin 2. Those are the only 4 possibilities. So what's the chance of getting 2 heads? 25%. Those are the 4 possibilities. 1 out of 4 could be 2 heads. Right?
Yeah.
So Mendel looked at this and he thought maybe the short one is like 2 heads. That's how he came up with that's how he figured out genetics. He said maybe the short one's like getting 2 heads. So what do we mean 2 heads? Well, he figured that each plant had 2 genes for height, also known as alleles. Y'all seem distracted by something. Each plant has 2 alleles for height. He called those alleles big T for tall and little t for short. These are known as alleles. Short. These are known as alleles. Today we call them genes.
So alleles and genes are the
Are they the same?
They're similar. A gene is a location on a chromosome that codes for a trait. So yeah, we could call alleles genes. But Mendel said, hey, this must have gotten 2 short alleles. And that's why it's short. So let's go back to the parent generation. We'll get to those later. If this parent, Mendel figured, had 2 big T alleles, and this parent had 2 little t alleles. See, Mendel figured you must get 1 allele from your dad, you must get the other allele from your mom. So what would these plants be? This one got a big T from its dad and a little t from its mom. It must be big T, little t. And same with this one. 1 from its dad, 1 from its mom. As a matter of fact, all of these must have been big T, little t. And Mendel figured that big T must dominate over little t when the 2 of them are together. So he called big T the dominant gene. And he called little t the recessive gene. You know what recessive means? The word recessive. What's it mean? Can you guess what it means?
opposite of dominant. The weaker. Oh,
That's a good guess. Weaker means a good guess.
the one that receives.
Recessive means hidden. Hidden. It's the hidden gene. Do you see how it's hidden here? You look at the plant, it looks tall, but it's got a hidden gene. It's got a hidden short gene. Usually, if you have a recessive gene, it's a mutated instruction. It's instructions for a protein that gets mutated. Something's wrong with it. It's not producing the correct protein. Your recessive genes are not producing the correct proteins. And so this one has 2 recessives, and so does this one. They are not producing the correct proteins to grow. So they're short. Since this has 1 good gene and 1 mutated gene, the 1 good gene is enough to produce the proteins you need to grow. It doesn't matter if you have 1 good gene or 2 good genes. You just need to make that protein for growth, and it'll grow to its full height. Mendel figured all this out. And he figured, how does this get a 3-to-1 ratio? Well, there's 4 possibilities if you cross these two. This plant could get big T, big T. Actually, I could do this like this. A big T from this one, and a big T from that one. This plant could be maybe a big T from this one, and a little T from this one. Big T, little t. And this plant right here could get a big T from this one and a little t from this one. And it would also be big T, little t. You always put the uppercase letter first. You don't ever put little t, big T. Ready? You getting all this?
I am getting all this.
Well, what's the only other possibility? Little t, little t. Now, aren't all these lines confusing?
Yeah.
In the early 1900s, long after Mendel died, a mathematician named Reginald Punnett came along, and he said, aren't the lines confusing? I got something less confusing. A Punnett Square. A big T, little t, crossed with the big T, little t, makes big T, big T, big T, little t, big T, little t, little t. There, that's how you figure out how those kids end up. Mendel figured all that out from his experiments. He wrote it up in the mid to late 1800s, put it in nice logbooks, sent his work out to a few folks. Nobody really got that interested in it. It got shelved, kind of, and forgotten. Mendel died without ever realizing he was famous. But in the early, like 30 years after Mendel died, some scientists were still trying to figure this out. And they wrote up some papers, and somebody who had read Mendel's work a few decades before said, hey, Mendel already figured all this out. And they found Mendel's work, and they said, oh yeah, he did. And Mendel became famous for it. After he'd already died. After Mendel did all his work with his peas, he kind of went into other things. He became the leader of his monastery, or one of the guys who ran the show, and he kind of quit doing scientific work. But he figured it all out. And he didn't just do this experiment with height. He did a whole bunch of experiments. Hold on. I don't show his experiments. I need to show them. He figured out hold on. I need to fix this and show you this. Look at what Mendel did. This is his actual experiment. If you're not impressed by his experiment, well, you're pretty hard to impress. He figured out that violet was dominant over white in a 3-to-1 ratio. So he did the same experiment. Instead of tall and short, violet flowers and white flowers. These are his actual numbers. 705 F2s were violet, 224 were white. That's about a 3-to-1 ratio. He figured out axial flowers were dominant over terminal flowers. Axial flowers means the flowers in the middle of the plant, and terminal flowers means the flowers at the end. He figured tall is dominant over short. He figured round seeds are dominant over wrinkled in a 3-to-1 ratio. Look at these numbers. He had to count out seeds. 5,474 round seeds to 1,850 wrinkled seeds. Question?
What is like the 100% mean? 100%?
The F1, that's the F1. So in this experiment, the F1 were 100% tall. See what I'm saying? So the F1 here, for round versus wrinkled seeds, the F1 was 100% round seeds.
Was there anything that like wasn't 100%?
No, they're all 100% in the F1.
Are they all 3 to 1?
They're all 3 to 1. Look, yellow versus green, 3 to 1 ratio. They're not exactly 3 to 1, are they? They're real close to 3 to 1. Why aren't they exactly 3 to 1?
It's random, because it's probability.
There's randomness, and y'all got to understand probability. If there's a 3 to 1 chance of having a short plant as a kid, and I have 4 seeds that I plant, are you going to automatically get 1 short and 3 tall? Not necessarily. It's like if I flip a coin twice, am I automatically going to get 1 head and 1 tail? No, I might get 2 heads. I might get 2 tails. There's luck involved. So if you plant 8,000, if you count 8,000 seeds, you're not going to get exactly 6,000 to 2,000, but you're going to get close. And he got dang close. But there is, you got to remember, there is chance happening. So you got a 50-50 chance when you have a kid of it being a boy or a girl. But if you have 4 kids, you're not necessarily going to get 2 boys and 2 girls. You can get 3 girls and a boy. Isn't that right, Meryl? Not me. They got 4 girls, right? Meryl, Jessie, who are the other girls?
Is it?
Emily,
Courtney.
and Courtney.
I don't know where that came from.
4 out of, what is the odds of getting 4 girls if you have 4 kids? Does anyone know? How would you figure that out?
Isn't there something like after you have 2 of the same gender,
You got it.
you're more likely to have...
Not true. So the chance, here's how you figure that out. If you have 4 girls, the chance for each girl is a half. So the first kid was 50% chance of getting a girl. The second kid was 50% chance of getting a girl. The third kid was one half of getting a girl. And the fourth kid was 1/2 of getting a girl. So what's the chance of having 4 girls?
1/16.
1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2. 1/16. There's only a 1/16 chance of getting 4 girls if you have 4 kids. What's the chance? Here's the question they'll ask you on the AP exam. If you've had 3 straight girls, what's the chance of the next kid of being a girl?
50.
It's a half. It's still a half. Each kid is a half. It's not, since you've had 3 girls, it's not, the next one will probably be a boy. Each kid is a half, is a 50-50 chance. It doesn't matter what has happened before. This is called the gambler's fallacy. There are most people out there are poor gamblers because they think if something's happened a bunch of times in a row, then it's not, probably won't happen again. They'll say we're due for a boy. We've had 3 girls, the next one will probably be a boy because we're due. And it doesn't work that way, but most gamblers think it is. I've seen people in Las Vegas. I've been to Vegas many times. I run teaching workshops in Vegas. They often have them in Vegas because it's cheaper to house people in the hotels because people gamble and lose money, so they can offer cheap hotels. So anyway, I've seen people there, and they chart on the roulette table. They chart how many times it comes up red and how many times it comes up black. And if it comes up black 5 times in a row, they bet red because they figure red's due.
No.
And it's ridiculous. It's stupid. I tell them, I say, you're stupid. You're a stupid person. I don't say that.
Mr. Willis is just really good at gambling.
I say that to people I find who are smaller than me, which are not me. Kidding say that. But it is. It's called gambler's fallacy. So don't gamble that way.
No.
I'll make you a better gambler. You know who you should bet on in the casino? You know who you should bet on in the casino? Bet on the house. The house has the advantage in every game. There's no game in Vegas where you have an advantage. It's a slight edge toward the house. In roulette, you can bet red or black. You get 50-50. How does the house have an advantage? There's 2 green numbers. Out of the 36 numbers, there's 2 of them are green. There's 36 numbers and then 2 greens. If it hits green and you bet red or black, you're going to lose. And every once in a while it hits green. So see, the house has a slight advantage? Does that make sense? Every game is rigged a little bit like that. Blackjack is rigged just a hair so the house wins a little more than they give out. And that's how they make their money. So you got to know probability in AP Bio. They're going to ask you some probability stuff. Read the chapter, Who's My Wipers?